When is a law a law? That's something that philosophers of law work on quite a lot.
Welcome to the Federal Register. Our office is here in Washington, D.C. We're about 8 blocks from the Capitol building, and we're part of the National Archives and Records Administration.
A law is only a law to the extent that it has been promulgated. It has to be publicized. People have to know that it's a law.
The Office of the Federal Register was established in 1935 in the context of a problem that was developing in our government. We're called the Office of the Federal Register, but our ultimate product is the Code of Federal Regulations.
Much of the way in which government touches day-to-day people is through the regulatory process.
With the creation of the New Deal agencies under the Roosevelt administration, government began to do a lot more regulating of areas of our lives that had not been part of our national government before. We call this our receiving area, and about 300 different agencies could potentially deliver documents to our office every day. And there was no process for how these regulations were going to be issued. These are the raw documents that we've received from agencies. These documents could be notices, proposed rules, final rules, presidential documents. So the solution that Congress came up with was the Federal Register. This is a copy of the Daily Federal Register. This is a printed copy. We also publish it online, of course, issued every single day, in which agencies would publish any new regulations. And this would be, in effect, official notice that a regulation existed. And if it wasn't published in the Federal Register, then an agency couldn't enforce it. This stack of paper represents the material that is in one day's issue of the Federal Register.
If you have, as we do today, so many laws that not only do the people not know what the laws are, the lawmakers don't even know what the laws are. All it ends up doing is becoming a cudgel for someone to beat someone else over the head with. So you start doing something I don't like, and I will go and study the law, and I will find some law that you have violated, and I will call the police and have you arrested on the basis of this. And poor you say, well, I had no idea that this was a law. Of course you didn't. There are hundreds of thousands of laws. Nobody knows what they all are.
In primitive Scandinavian societies, think about the law talkers. It was the law talker's job to sit down and recite the totality of the law. That was his job, to learn, know, and transmit the law. And anything the law talker forgot to include in any given year was no longer the law, because it simply wouldn't fit into the mind of one man anymore.
There are a lot of rules. There are about 235 volumes in an annual edition of the Code of Federal Regulations. They comprise over 135,000 pages. That's a lot of material. But those rules not only restrict us, they also protect our rights in many ways. So you have rules relating to agriculture, to customs, to aeronautics and space, the Internal Revenue, and they are constantly being updated.
The common claim is that the average American commits 3 felonies a day. It wouldn't surprise me at all. It's not because we don't want to obey the law, it's because the law has become so complex that we don't even know what it is anymore.
In 2015, we published 80,000 pages of material in the Federal Register.
You have to ask yourself, is this approach to governance sustainable in the long term? Because we see the growth of the Federal Register over time, and it starts incrementally and then the growth becomes quite exponential. Well, what happens when it just keeps going?
Here's an issue from 2006, and I see there's some regulations dealing with the Golden Gate National Recreation Area, dog management. The Federal Register book is very dense. It has a lot of dense text, and just like when you're driving down the street and you see the notice of a hearing, somebody wants to do something and they're providing public notice of that, the Federal Register is that sign along the road where agencies are publishing notice of actions they're going to take that affect you and me. And this is our opportunity to be involved in that process and have a say. And I would encourage anyone to take advantage of that.
Are we going to get to the point where literally every facet of American life is regulated at the federal level? Now, I'm sure nobody would say that that's the goal, the dream, the aspiration, but it might well end up being the reality. And if it becomes the reality, self-governance itself is unsustainable.